Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2014 movie titled We Still Kill the Old Way. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. The film opens with a striking scene featuring Richie, a middle-aged British expatriate living in Spain, as he engages in shooting practice alongside a retired Mafia leader. Richie, far from an ordinary man, resides in an opulent home that reflects his considerable wealth. One afternoon, during a lunch with his daughter Carmen, he confides in her about his deep sense of loss for his older brother, Charlie, who still lives in England. The narrative shifts to Charlie, who is reminiscing about his brother while spending time with friends. Just then, his phone rings. It's Richie calling from Spain. Their conversation reveals a poignant longing between the siblings, bridging the distance that separates them. After their heartfelt exchange, Charlie rejoins his friends, where he is approached by Lizzie, a mutual friend of both brothers. She expresses her long-standing interest in Richie and asks Charlie for his number. Recognizing that Lizzie might be the perfect match for his brother, Charlie agrees to play matchmaker and shares Richie's contact information. Meanwhile, in London, a couple named Aaron and Lauren stroll through a desolate street. Unbeknownst to Lauren, Aaron, a gang leader, has sinister intentions as he leads her toward a narrow alley populated by gangsters. There, she becomes the target of harassment, and the gang records their despicable actions for their own amusement. Amidst the chaos, one of the gangsters, Dean, attempts to intervene but is thwarted by Aaron. The situation escalates until Charlie arrives at the scene after hearing the commotion from a nearby bar. He quickly assesses the situation and urges Lauren to leave while confronting the gangsters. However, instead of backing down, they hurl insults at him, prompting Charlie to retaliate by striking one of them. Infuriated by Charlie's defiance, Aaron orders his gang to deal with him violently. In a tragic turn of events, Lizzie steps out of the bar moments later and is horrified to discover Charlie's lifeless body in the alley. That night, she reports the incident to Detective Susan Taylor and John, but their investigation falters due to a lack of evidence. Lizzie only witnessed the gang members exiting the alley where Charlie was found dead. Devastated by the news of his brother's death, Richie resolves to return to England. Meanwhile, Detective Susan and John confront Aaron and his gang, warning them that they will face arrest if they are found guilty of Charlie's murder. Aaron dismisses their threats and leaves with his crew. Once they are gone, he instructs his associates to silence Lauren to prevent her from testifying against them. Aware of Aaron's malicious intent, Dean secretly visits Lauren's home to warn her about the impending threat. He advises her to stay indoors for her safety. Shortly after, Aaron and several gang members arrive at her house, where he menacingly uses the mail slot to intimidate her into silence regarding the events surrounding Charlie's death. As the tension mounted, Aaron's threats loomed large over Lauren and her mother, instilling fear in their hearts. Meanwhile, Richie had just arrived in England and wasted no time in meeting with Roy, one of his trusted associates. Concerned for his brother Charlie, Richie made his way to Lizzie's home to inquire about the circumstances surrounding Charlie's death. Lizzie, while unable to recount the incident firsthand, expressed her belief that gangsters, known troublemakers in London, were responsible for the tragedy. Following their conversation, Richie and Roy proceeded to the crime scene where Charlie had lost his life. There, they encountered Detective Susan and John, who were diligently investigating the matter. Recognizing Richie as a former Mafia leader of considerable respect, Susan suggested that the case be handed over to the police for further investigation. Despite the pressure to comply, Richie was reluctant to surrender the case of his brother's death to law enforcement. Nevertheless, he agreed to let the police take charge before departing from the scene. Later that night at a bar, Lizzie approached Richie with alarming news. She had discovered a video of Aaron and his gang harassing Lauren. Convinced that this footage was linked to Charlie's murder, she provided Richie with the address of Lauren's workplace, knowing their connection. Eager for answers, Richie sought out Lauren and asked her about the events leading to his brother's demise. Feeling a sense of obligation to Charlie, Lauren agreed to share what she knew in a quiet corner near her workplace. She revealed that Aaron's local gang was behind Charlie's murder, identifying him as the mastermind. Unbeknownst to them, DK, a member of Aaron's gang, had been watching from a distance. Upon returning to their headquarters, she informed Aaron that Lauren had spoken to a man named Richie about the incident. Aaron, initially dismissive and relaxed at the thought of confronting an ordinary middle-aged man, did not seem concerned. The narrative then shifts to a poignant moment from the past. Richie and his Mafia colleagues gathered at Charlie's funeral. Among them was an elderly man named Arthur, who arrived shortly after. In a light-hearted exchange, Richie jokingly suggested that Arthur should leave because he was too old to be part of their circle. Arthur, angered by the jest, retorted that he was the only one who had nearly bested Richie in their younger days. The laughter that followed momentarily eased the somber atmosphere. After the funeral, Richie sought out Jack, a retired police commissioner living in modest surroundings. He asked Jack for assistance in gathering information about Aaron and his gang. In exchange for Jack's help, Richie promised to share some of his possessions to improve Jack's quality of life in retirement. A few days later, Jack provided Richie with details about several gang members but unfortunately could not uncover any information regarding Aaron, the gang's leader. Determined to find answers, Richie instructed his friends to kidnap 2 gang members, Leroy and Ed. However, upon realizing they were being confronted by a group of older men, Leroy and Ed dismissed Richie's inquiries about Aaron's whereabouts with insults and disdain. The tension in the room escalated as Leroy and Ed, the 2 young men Richie and his friends had kidnapped, showed no hesitation in threatening their captors. To this, Richie and his friends could only laugh, for the pair seemed blissfully unaware of their true identities and pasts. However, when Ed began to insult Charlie, Richie's temper flared. Arthur, a seasoned member of Richie's crew, responded to Richie's orders by rummaging through his bag for tools. Without a moment's hesitation, he drove a nail into the back of Ed's hand, a grim act that set the tone for what was to follow. Arthur then produced a drill and began to bore into Ed's feet, eliciting cries of agony from the young man. Witnessing his friend's torture, Leroy felt a surge of panic. He did not want to suffer the same fate. In a desperate bid for self-preservation, he offered to help Richie by luring Aaron out of hiding. Richie's friends were skeptical of Leroy's sudden willingness to cooperate, but in an unexpected turn, Richie agreed to his offer and set him free. The moment Leroy was unbound, he reached for a gun with the intent to shoot Richie. Yet before he could pull the trigger, Richie swiftly drew his own weapon and shot Leroy dead. "I didn't trust him either," Richie remarked, "I just didn't want to kill someone helpless." The group shared a dark laugh at the absurdity of the situation. As they prepared to interrogate Ed further, they were caught off guard when he suddenly succumbed to the torture and died. Meanwhile, Aaron was growing increasingly annoyed at the disappearance of 2 of his gang members, suspecting rival gang activity behind their vanishing act. The following day, Richie returned to Lauren, seeking her assistance in tracking down the remaining members of Aaron's gang. Lauren mentioned that a gang member named JB had been seen in a nearby parking lot. Feeling guilty for continuing to involve Lauren in this dangerous situation, Richie hesitated but ultimately asked for her phone number. Just as she was about to provide it, Detective Susan, Lauren's mother, arrived on the scene, warning Richie not to involve her daughter further. The narrative shifted to the parking lot where JB encountered Arthur, mistaking him for an easy target due to his age. However, when Arthur brandished a sword, JB quickly pedaled away on his bicycle. In his haste, he collided with a car driven by Richie's friends, causing him to fall. This was part of a trap laid by Richie and his crew, who soon had JB tied up in an abandoned building. Once again, Richie demanded to know Aaron's whereabouts. JB, dismissive and mocking, refused to provide any information and even derided Charlie's memory by comparing him to a stupid dog during their brutal encounter. Enraged by JB's taunts, Richie lost control and beat him to death. The violent outburst triggered a recurrence of Richie's illness, forcing him into the hospital for treatment. While recuperating, Richie devised a plan to draw Aaron out of hiding. Days later, Aaron and his gang were busy preparing weapons in anticipation of an attack from rival gangs when Lauren arrived at their headquarters. She informed them that all their missing members had been kidnapped and killed by Richie and that he was currently hospitalized. During their conversation, Lauren received a call from her mother. Aaron insisted she take the call to avoid raising any suspicion. After Lauren relayed all the information she had gathered, Aaron and his gang decided to pay Richie a visit at the hospital, taking Lauren hostage as part of their plan. He ordered his men to search for Richie's room. Before long, 2 gang members located Richie's room and opened fire on the bed, believing him to be lying there. Unbeknownst to them, Richie and his friends had positioned themselves behind them and returned fire. Hearing the gunshots from the elevator, Aaron realized that Richie had anticipated his plan. Growing suspicious, he checked Lauren's phone and discovered that she and Richie had conspired against him and his gang. Aaron seethed with anger upon realizing that Lauren had betrayed him. Consumed by rage, he plotted to kill her. Just as he was about to act on his vengeful impulse, Dean arrived on the scene, swiftly intervening and pushing Aaron to the ground. This act of bravery ignited a fierce firefight between Richie's group and Aaron's gang. Amidst the chaos, Lauren recognized that the situation was spiraling out of control. In a moment of urgency, she contacted Susan, urging her to rush to the hospital. Meanwhile, Richie's crew was methodically taking down Aaron's gang members one by one. However, the violence took its toll when one of Richie's own was shot in the hand and required immediate medical attention. As tensions mounted, Dean made a bold attempt to rescue Lauren, leading her away from the hospital. Unfortunately, Aaron caught wind of their escape and seized Lauren as a hostage, demanding that Richie come out to confront him. In response, Richie and his friends emerged from their hiding place only to find Aaron poised to shoot. In a critical moment, Dean intervened again, managing to disrupt Aaron's aim and causing his gun to slip from his grasp toward Richie. Though Richie quickly grabbed the weapon, he struggled to load it with bullets. Meanwhile, Aaron stood before him, pointing another gun directly at Richie. However, fortune favored Richie. Aaron's gun had run out of ammunition, rendering him unable to pull the trigger. At that crucial juncture, Susan and several police officers arrived on the scene. Recognizing Aaron as a threat to Richie's life, they swiftly opened fire, neutralizing him before he could carry out his deadly intentions. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Richie found himself lying in a hospital bed. It was there that Susan visited him to express her gratitude for saving her daughter. A few days later, Richie decided to throw a grand party at the club to celebrate their survival and resilience. During the festivities, he encountered Lizzie, who expressed her interest in him. However, when he suggested that she join him in Spain, Lizzie declined, unwilling to leave her home in England. This rejection left Richie's friends feeling disheartened at the prospect of his departure, especially after their struggles to avenge Charlie's death. But just when they thought he had left for Spain in his private helicopter, Richie made an unexpected appearance behind them. He declared his decision to stay in England and live alongside his friends. The film concluded with Richie and his crew preparing to take on the criminal underbelly of London, committing themselves to atone for their past sins. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.